Welcome to week 3 of The Painter and the Performance Artist. I'm Sophia.
And I'm Ruby too.
And we're really happy to be with you this morning. We can't believe that it's already been 2 weeks of making and doing crazy things in this beautiful space that is the mill. And we've learned so much.
So much. And felt quite uncomfortable at times.
Yes.
But in a good way.
Yes. Our manifesto has almost been like a
Foundation?
A foundation, but also a prophecy.
Yeah, that's so true.
Some of the things that we talk about, like we feverishly seek to be uncomfortable, and through this find variations and outcomes that otherwise would not occur. We set out to do that, but it kind of happened to us, which was amazing.
And I found that the manifesto was such a powerful tool because when I did feel lost or maybe a little, confused even, I would go back to it and be like, yeah. Because this week I found that I wasn't just thinking about the individual challenge, but I was thinking about the exhibition as a whole and the concept of the show as a whole. And I found it to be a really helpful tool.
What did you think about that? Like visually, can you paint me a picture?
What do you mean?
Like you were thinking about the exhibition as a whole, like the 4 weeks, or?
The exhibition as a whole, as in the concept, like what our aims are for the show and why we're doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just was questioning things like, how much of my practice do I need to bring into this? How much of it do you need to, or what are our expectations around that? So
how did you go this week, Ruby Chi?
This week was good. I'll give you this one for later. As you are probably aware, my challenge this week was on breath. So I had to make work on the exhale in the morning and on the inhale in the afternoon. I found it to be challenging even physically because I did that quite strictly for the first 2 days. Yeah, and I
follow that.
Yeah, I found I got quite lightheaded. So I don't think, and I think it was kind of limiting as well to think about it too literally because breath has limitations in that, if you're only making on an inhale or an exhale, that's a short amount of time. So
place to start.
Exactly. And that was another thing about the concept of the whole show was, how rigid do we need to be with these challenges? Is this just a starting point or, what's the expectation around that as well? So that was very interesting. So after a couple of days of doing that, I started thinking broader. And I brought it back to materiality for me. So I was thinking, what materials can I use for this challenge? And instantly I went to aerosol because aerosol is like breath in a can, so with paint. So I started making some work with aerosol and I didn't want to use it in the way that perhaps it is intended to be used. Like I didn't want to, create paintings with aerosol. I did in the end, but I wanted to kind of push it. So I used rags and paper scrunch to smush the paint around and just tried to think about it less literally, I guess. Yeah.
Variation on the breath.
Exactly.
That makes me think of like a raspy breath to use like paper scrunched up with the aerosol.
Yeah.
It's almost like, that's interesting.
There were some nice parallels between previous work as well. So for the first couple of days I did make some paintings, and again it made me think about as a whole, like what is the or objective of the show. So I love making big paintings, but I realized that if I were to make a big painting it would probably take me at least a few days, and that would limit the amount of experimentation perhaps I could do with this one challenge, because we do only have a week, and even though that sounds like a lot of time, it's really not, because so much thinking goes into this as well. It's not just the doing.
Yeah, we sort of had this conversation this week that we're actually making or building this treasure chest of ideas and started experiments from which that we can use later on in our practice, that we can sort of mine. And I know that massive painting's going to come out of this for you.
Yeah, and also, I'm questioning other ways of making as well. So for me, there was such a sound element to that challenge. And I was really thinking, my background as well is that I'm a DJ. So I have some musical ties there.
DJ Ruby Chew. Little shout out.
So yeah, I was just thinking about sound art as well, which is something I've never done. And that's definitely in the bank for later because I didn't feel like I had enough time to fully explore it. And also I questioned the materiality because we have a strict set of list of materials, as you know. So I was questioning where that tied in as well. But anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting because like the one of our materials is the body. And if you would have only made that sound work, perhaps from your own self-generated sounds. But that would, like we said, we have all of these ideas and there's just never enough time.
Exactly. But anyway, I think that's a nice segue to how your week was, Ida.
Oh gosh, it was such a big week, such a big week. And I don't know if I've ever, not in a few years, done something so intensely like this. We're here 10 till 4 every day and making all of that time. And we're also here early, every day, setting up, doing our admin. We often stay afterwards to continue doing our admin. So through that intensity there, I really got clear and focused on what my studio practice looks like or what it involves, and how do I as a performance artist approach the sorts of things that I want to make work about or that I'm challenged to make work about. And where I naturally go to begin with is an enormous amount of thinking. And I was thinking and writing and mind mapping and researching and reading and planning and sketching for 4 days. It was a long time. And I didn't actually physically make. I was making in my mind, and the week began with this challenge that was macro-micro, and it was around my significant object, which is this beautiful necklace of charms of things that little things that people have given me, including Ruby. And I was to begin with this on the Monday, and I didn't actually bring it in. I forgot to wear it. So the first action being create a 5x5 centimetre paper viewfinder and spend time looking through this, observing your object of significance within the gallery. I had to do this through my mind, through my memory, and I ended up writing pages and pages of everything that I remembered about its physicality, its materiality, its the memories associated with it, and I began to build from there. I drew them from memory, which wasn't as bad as I thought. They got there. But the way that the week developed was really fascinating for me to sort of step out and observing myself. Yeah. So the places that I got to around thinking was also really helped with people coming through the gallery and with chats with Ruby. There was so many people coming through that I was just sort of throwing questions at. What does this make you think? One of these is an acorn, and someone said that the acorn has the intelligence of an oak tree. So there was a line of inquiry. Someone else, I got to a place thinking about the group movement and functionality when some of our senses are taken away. Ruby gave me an amulet that is of an eye, and I investigated the material and physical and symbolic properties of each of these amulets in order to finally, by Friday, discover performance actions that related to them. So this eye, it's only one eye and it doesn't blink. So this is a very simple, a non-blinking eye kind of performance action, but where does it go from there? So I began...
What's the variation?
What's the variation? Always, what's the variation? So, I started to think about how in performance art, when you're performing, you have to be so aware of the people that are around you, the other performers, the people that are watching, the edges of the space, the room, how finite that is, and how your energy and your actions actually change, alter, affect, influence, affect with a capital A, how all of these elements rub up against each other. And so I like this idea that I didn't get to fully explore, but we did with like 5 people. Oh yeah. I made these single eye eye patches that have a really teeny tiny hole in them, like a viewfinder. So going back to that first part of the challenge. And when you put it on, you have to, this one doesn't have a viewfinder, but imagine there's a hole in it. You have to close this eye to see through it. And if you put this on, you can't see through this one. So there's this, we all put them on and we walked around the space and understood that we were moving differently. And it was a really fun, like spontaneous thing with some people that came through.
I thought it was awesome though, because this really is about occupying the mill, and the process is the exhibition. So people coming in, and this engagement is really powerful and really speaks to what we're trying to do. And I think I didn't anticipate how many people would actually come and how much time that would take as well. So that's definitely part of it all.
It's just so great to like have that. I don't get a lot of studio visits, being on my own in my studio. We all sort of don't. And embracing that everyone has something to offer, and to take you down a whole nother line of thought was it really electrified me, and it just added a million things to my enormous mind maps on the wall, and more things to mine in my treasure chest.
Yeah, something that was really cool as well was this idea that perhaps we could collaborate, which obviously we are now, but we were considering connecting some of the viewfinders to my paintings, so that people would have to view them through Ida's viewfinders, and that conversation was quite interesting. But walking around the space was like, as a participant in this, was really bizarre, because you felt it's funny how your body adapts to the removal of a sense. So you just feel like you want to touch everything because you can't properly see, So.
I thought it was fascinating, like what happens if you take away half of the sensory ability of all of the people in the room? How do they move together? What are the social relations? Is it more touchy? Is it, and that's okay because everyone needs it. Yeah, lots of questions arose. I'm just gonna consult my notes. Yeah, do you want to do our next challenge? Are you ready for that?
Yeah, totally.
Ooh,
so we're gonna read
the big reveal.
Our next challenge.
Hold on, number 3. All right, you gonna go first?
I can.
All right.
Okay. On location. Start with the concept of a map. Consider locations, literal, metaphysical, points in your practice, personal history that you are attached to, nostalgic for. Locations that represent emotional attachment, both positive and negative. List them out, map the connections, observe anchors, make work.
Ooh.
Wow, that's a lot.
It was a big long one.
That's a long one. Yeah, I'm going to be busy this week, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear yours.
Here we go. Deconstruction. Good one. Select one substantial work from the last few weeks. Carefully cut, tear, and pull it apart, creating a variety of shapes. Reconfigure these pieces into many new compositions. Document this process. Select one configuration. Use this as a base to create a sculpture. You must include wood. Oh yes, I haven't used wood yet, so that's good.
Funny because we were literally talking about it this week, like, neither of us has really used the material of wood, which is one of the ones that I popped forward.
Yeah.
And I promise you, I wrote that, we wrote our challenges prior to coming into the space, and it's funny how many serendipitous moments there have been with with the breath left one for me, and
maybe it is all just prophecy, everything that we wrote beforehand.
And also, if you missed out on last week's opening and reflection, if you jump onto my YouTube, you can just search Ruby Chu Art on YouTube, and the video of that will be on there for you to check out. So a little exclusive not on the Instagram TV is now us just having a quick debrief about these challenges that we've just read. So mine obviously is around location. So it's really interesting, locations, literal, so where we are currently, the mill, Adelaide, Australia, the
That's
world.
for you to define, yeah.
Metaphysical, I'm going to have to break that down for sure, because I have to have a good think about metaphysical.
I think we've learned from last week, like, take leave, pick it up in 3 days' time.
Yeah.
Like, you might not know what that means today.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Consider locations, points in your practice, personal history that you're attached to / nostalgic for. Whew.
Yeah, we're going conceptual. We're going personal this week.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a big chunk that I'm going to really have to break down.
Yeah.
Locations that represent emotional attachment, both positive and negative. List them out. So this is cool because we were talking last week about, Ida works so well with making lists and mind maps, like watching you work for literally 4 days, just building on those things before making a single move, which is a really different way of working, whereas I tend to think something, spend a little bit less time initially thinking and then start doing and think as I make, which is, I find that's how I work, and that's what comes naturally to me. But I think the challenge for me will be to actually spend a good few days listing, thinking.
Like, I usually list and think in my journal, and it's usually kind of more private. But not this week. I did my neck this week, and so I had to write on the wall. So I got out the butcher's paper, and so I could keep my neck straight, and so I could write. And having a big piece of paper to see, like, to throw it all out, throw it all down. You don't have to keep it up, especially I know it's going to be more personal this week for you.
Yeah.
But sort of seeing it all laid out in front of you, you can then start to go, well, that work that I made in 2007 was talking about this thing in 1995, which I now only realize in 2021. So,
but is that a location or is that a timeline? Or it's both?
Both. I would consider, I would consider artworks as being locations in that belong to a time. I would consider an address, a person,
I guess as a formalist, as I would consider myself, I'm already thinking of the visual language of maps.
Yeah.
Because maps have a very specific look.
Oh, I've got this great book I've got to bring in for you.
Okay, cool. They've got a very specific look. They have a key.
They do.
They have like a functionality. They have a color code often. Even the tracking of like
latitude and longitude.
Like there's so many. Exactly. I instantly went to a street directory for some reason.
That's cool.
I mean,
it's like an artist book.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny to think that some younger generations don't even know what a street directory is. I love that. But
and I think of like, maps, they're on our phones now, so super agile. But back in the day with those books, you would have to like lug this map around, and you would have to learn how to read that map too, which is a skill in itself.
Oh, well, as a dyslexic person, I'm terrible at reading maps, even the ones on the phone. I'd have to ask Siri to tell me where to go, which is problematic. But with the street directory, it's impossible. It's an impossible task to drive and read a street directory.
It is.
That's a thought.
I wonder what a map for you looks like. Not one that's been made for the general public, but one that's been made specifically for your mind. Maybe no one else can read it.
There's an amazing artwork by one of my favourite artists, Grayson Perry, and he, I think it's called The Map of an Englishman, or an Englishman, and he's mapping his emotional state. I mean, that would be a really great place to start looking.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
great
and he
inspiration.
borrows from the visual language of old maps. So yeah, I mean, gosh, I can't wait to dive into this one.
Perfect starting point. I think that your experience in your life is yours. You know, no one else has lived it quite the way that you have. All of those points in your life are also incredibly relatable, you know, for people that view your work. And I just want to see where you go with it. So.
I'm so excited, honestly. This is a really great challenge.
Yeah.
Let's talk about yours.
I have made a couple of substantial works this past week that I really love. I instantly went first to this one that you can see just on the wall, like over there. It's a work that's made out of paper and glue, and it's like a sand dune. All of the paper's been scrunched into sort of like wrinkles.
From week one.
From week one. Yeah. And I laid on that to impress a print in my back that would respond to like a landform or something like that. As soon as I read this, thinking about deconstructing that and turning it into a sculpture, I really love that, and I'm excited to destroy it.
Yeah.
And turn it into something different. And then the other thing is, I made like 4-5 performances on Friday, just mini little tests. I wonder what deconstructing them looks like. I'm going to be doing some thinking and sketching.
Yeah.
To like extract every little element, you know. I'm sitting on this 100 by 100 centimetre square, and in it I filled it with a surface tension of water, and there was the action of soaking that up. There was the action of re-squeezing the water back into the jar that it came from, of pouring it. Like there's all of these different actions inside an action that can be completely pulled apart and reconstructed.
Because of course, you know, cutting, ripping, tearing, pulling apart can be physical and can be conceptual.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good one.
Totally.
And also I'm interested to see how you're going to use wood.
Yeah, I think that will come later.
And because as we mentioned, you know, we were both like, oh, we haven't used wood yet. So
are the plinths made of wood? Can we use plinth?
Yeah.
They are.
And something that I'm interested to see with what you're going to do is about the sculpture itself. You know, is it site specific? Is it ephemeral? Is it like there are so many possibilities.
Yeah, I'm very interested in the artifact of the performance and like performative objects that aren't necessarily just used by me. We collect objects and we have things in our homes, often things that are just for looking at, but I wonder, when I was little, I loved my mum's things. They were like shiny or just fine, you know.
And particularly when they're like not meant to be touched.
Oh, all of them were not meant to be touched. And lots of them were like, you know, crystal or caught the light or whatever it is. And I love just holding them and touching them and looking at them in really tiny detail. I kind of still love doing that as an adult, just having those things and not being so precious about them, even if they're really precious.
And there is a preciousness when you walk into a gallery. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Like don't touch. That's the general consensus. Don't touch. There's lines that allow you to not get too close to the artwork.
There's alarms.
Yes, exactly. So about accessibility and welcomeness within art experiences. So that's a really interesting.
Yeah, and I mean the foundation of my practice is participatory action, and so I wonder how it's taken out of the gallery too. You know, these are works that you can buy, and it's not something you put on your wall or you put on a plinth. It's something that you can pick up as you're walking past. And hold and think and experience. Well, see, we went on just a whole journey there.
We did. I'm glad I filmed it. Okay, well, I think now we're officially going to end.
Time to get started.
Time to get started, exactly. So thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you in the gallery at the Mill sometime or at our finissage.
May 7th, 5:30.
Yeah, I'll pop some details below. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Ciao.